Children's laughter echoed faintly over the fields, but somewhere near the edge of the village, past a cluster of houses with rusting tin roofs, silence clung to the air like a curse. Vika wasn't like the other girls. At 13, she had the bruises and scrapes of a boy twice her age. Everyone in the village called her Vika the Tiger, a nickname earned from countless scuffles and her fearless nature. While other girls played house or braided each other's hair, Vika roamed the woods, hunted frogs, and once fought 3 older boys for tying a dog's tail. Today, however, even Vika hesitated. She crouched beside a narrow dirt path at the village border, a hand shielding her eyes from the sun, watching 2 boys run past with pale faces. "Did you hear?" one shouted. "There's a corpse in the bamboo grove. They say it's been skinned." Vika's heart jumped not from fear, but from excitement. Within minutes, she rounded up her ragtag crew: Tam, a scrawny joker, Hui, the silent muscle, and Leem, a wannabe scientist who carried an old magnifying glass everywhere. They called themselves the Dust Watchers, a name Vika made up after watching a foreign detective show on TV once. "Are you boys seriously scared of a body?" Vika teased as they crept toward the grove. "Afraid it'll get up and chase you?" "It's not that," Tam muttered, glancing over his shoulder. "People say it was peeled like fruit." The path narrowed, bamboo stalks closing in like a cage. A few adults were still gathered near the grove, whispering, gesturing with nervous hands. A tarpaulin covered something long and lumpy. The sight of it made Leem gag. "Stay here," Vika ordered. But the boys followed anyway. The tarp flapped in the wind. One of the villagers, a man named Uncle Doan, stood up and addressed the small crowd. His face was drawn, his voice low but firm. "No one knows who she is," he said. "No ID, no clothes, no skin. Just meat and bones." The words froze the children. Vika, for the first time in memory, didn't move. "She could have been from our village," another man murmured. "Or the one across the hill. No one's seen anything like this." "Was she murdered?" someone whispered. "No doubt. But it wasn't just murder. It was ritual," Uncle Doan said, his eyes scanning the trees. "There are markings on the body. Strange ones." That night, Vika couldn't sleep. She lay on the wooden floor of her family's hut, eyes wide open, the bamboo grove flickering in her mind. What kind of ritual needs someone's skin? The next morning, word spread faster than the monsoon wind. Nobody claimed the body. Nobody knew who she was. Vika knew one thing: this wasn't an ordinary death. This was something darker. Later that day, Vika slipped away from chores and went to the only adult who ever entertained her curiosities, old man Koa, a retired teacher who now lived in a shack filled with books and pickled animal parts. He was strange, but kind. And most importantly, he never laughed at her questions. "There's something wrong in Thatch, son," she told him. "You heard about the body?" "I did," he replied, without looking up from his thick book. "And I've heard about what's been happening in Langkoa too. Odd things." "Like what?" "Like a woman there suddenly becoming young again. Radiant. Beautiful. As if age forgot her. It happened just days before that body was found." Vika's breath caught in her throat. "You think they're connected?" Old man Koa nodded. "Rituals like that, if they exist, need sacrifice. Life traded for youth. Blood for beauty. But they're dangerous. Very dangerous." The old man hesitated, then pulled a dusty journal from his shelf. He opened it to a yellowed page filled with symbols and handwritten notes. "This is called a Honzak ritual. A forbidden practice. It requires not only a human sacrifice, but the full extraction of identity, skin, soul, name." "What happens to the victim?" Vika asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They become nothing," Koa said. "Erased. The body becomes a vessel to transfer vitality. And if done improperly, the soul might linger, full of rage." At that, a knock rang out at the shack's door. It was Tam, breathless and pale. "Vika, come quick. It's Kwang. He's missing." "What?" Vika stood up so fast she knocked over a jar. "Since when?" "Just now. We were playing behind the banyan tree. He said he needed to pee and never came back." Koa closed his book and stood slowly. "It begins again." Outside, clouds gathered ominously over the village. The bamboo grove swayed, whispering secrets no one wanted to hear. And as Vika ran after Tam, her fists clenched and heart pounding, she knew this was just the beginning of something far worse than a single corpse in a grove. It was a curse crawling out from under centuries of silence. Night had fallen again over Thatch Sun, but this time it felt heavier. The moon, pale and bloated, cast ghostly light over the village, turning rice paddies into silver mirrors and trees into black skeletons. Crickets had fallen silent. Even the stray dogs no longer barked. Vika stood beneath the ancient banyan tree, her hand pressed against its thick bark as if trying to listen through it. Kwang had vanished without a trace. The place he last stood still had his slingshot hanging on a low branch. Tam was there too, pacing nervously in a circle. "He was just here," he muttered. He said, "Wait for me, I need to pee," and then nothing. Vika's eyes scanned the darkness. "Did you see anyone else? Hear anything strange?" Tam stopped. Just a sound, like wind through teeth. But the air was still. Before she could respond, a shrill cry echoed through the distance. It was faint, like a scream swallowed by the trees. Vika's heart skipped. Tam's face turned white. That came from the bamboo grove. Without waiting, Vika ran, flashlight clutched tight. Tam chased after her, despite the fear clawing at his legs. As they approached the grove, they saw something strange: 3 villagers standing near the edge, holding torches. One of them was Old Man Koa. The others were Mr. Dung, the village butcher, and Hoa, the herb seller. They were murmuring in hushed tones over something on the ground. What happened? Vika called out. Koa turned, surprised. You shouldn't be here. Is it Kwang? She demanded. The 3 adults exchanged a look. Then Mr. Dung sighed and moved aside. It wasn't Kwang. It was a shirt torn and bloodied. It belonged to him. No body, Koa said quietly. But something took him. And left this behind. Vika's fists tightened. Her chest burned not with fear, but rage. Who would do this? We don't know, Hoa whispered. But this is not just murder. This is collection. Collection. Koa nodded grimly. We've been watching the signs. The corpse from before. Now this. They're preparing something. At that moment, the bamboo behind them rustled. All torches turned. A shadow slithered between the stalks. Fast. Too fast. Koa stepped forward, pulling a small pouch from his satchel. Stay behind me. He scattered a dust-like powder into the air and chanted something in a forgotten tongue. The shadows recoiled, the grove falling silent again. Tam was shaking now. What was that? Something not meant to be seen by the living, Koa said. Suddenly, from the far end of the path, a boy ran toward them, breathless and crying. It was Dan, one of the younger boys from their neighborhood. Miss Vika, he yelled. They saw a woman walking toward the village. Her skin glowed like glass in the moonlight. She looked like she wasn't real. Vika grabbed him. Where? The old bridge by the shrine. Before anyone could move, Koa shouted, no one goes alone. And no one approaches her directly. If this is what I think it is, we're dealing with a vessel. A what? Vika asked. A person whose body has been used to carry something else. A soul displaced. A fake youth. A stolen life. Vika's blood ran cold. You mean the beautiful woman? That's her. I believe it's the same one who was old until 2 weeks ago. And if the rituals are being repeated, there will be more victims. Just then, Hoa's eyes widened, pointing toward the ground. A set of bare footprints, small, childlike, had appeared in the mud behind them, even though no one had passed that way. They were headed away from the grove, into the forest. Tam whispered, "Kwang." But Koa shook his head. Something is using his image, luring us. That night, the village held a private meeting. Only a few were invited. Among them, Koa, Vika, Mr. Dung, and a former exorcist named Uncle Bao, who had long since sworn never to practice again. But the darkness was returning, and they had no choice. "I've seen this before," Uncle Bao said, voice gravelly with age. "Once, during the war, a mountain village in the north. Same signs. Skinned corpses. Women becoming young. Children disappearing. What happened?" Vika asked. "They called it Bua Hon Han, the soul exchange curse. A sorcerer trades someone's life force to another. Sometimes willingly. Sometimes taken." Vika's voice shook. "And how did it end?" "Badly. Fire. Screaming. And blood. Lots of it." Silence fell across the room. "We need to stop this," she finally said. "If no one else will, then I will." The following morning, a shroud of mist clung stubbornly to the fields of thatched sun, turning the familiar into the unfamiliar. Fog crept into every corner, as though the village itself were trying to hide something. Vika sat cross-legged on the porch of Old Man Koa's shack, staring at a piece of red string in her hand. It had been tied around the bloodied shirt found in the bamboo grove. Koa examined it the night before and muttered just one word, "Binding." "What does it mean?" she asked again. Koa looked up from his mortar and pestle, where he was grinding something that smelled like burnt cinnamon. "It means the ritual was not finished. That child Kwang, he wasn't just taken. He was selected. Marked. Possibly rejected." "Rejected?" Koa nodded. "If a soul or body is incompatible for the ritual, the sorcerer must abandon it before the energies turn back on them. That's what makes these practices dangerous even for the practitioners." "And if it was completed?" He didn't answer. But his silence said everything. Suddenly, The door creaked open and a young woman appeared. She had short hair, fierce eyes, and a travel-worn satchel slung over one shoulder. "This is Min," Koa said. "She's from Langkoat." "A friend." "A former apprentice," Min corrected, placing a small leather journal on the table. "I came back when I heard what's happening. And I think I know where this trail leads." She opened the book and flipped through pages of strange diagrams and sketches, symbols etched around human figures, stars mapped into strange geometries, and most disturbing of all, a drawing of a woman with no face. "They call it the Vessel of Renewal," Min explained. "A forbidden rite from the Black Scrolls of Van Xa. To perform it, you need 3 components, the dying, the willing, and the vessel." "Willing," Vika repeated. "You mean someone chooses this?" "Some do. Desperation can be a cruel motivator." Min continued, "The corpse you found was likely the vessel. Chosen for her youth and physical compatibility. Her skin is not just discarded, it's transferred. The body becomes a shell for someone else's soul. But the process is volatile. It doesn't always stick." Old man Koa tapped the red string. "And that's why we're seeing spirits now. Displaced souls. Some trapped. Some angry." Vika stood, suddenly restless. "We need to go to that house." Min looked at her. "Which one?" "The one no one talks about. The mist-covered manor beyond the rice fields. Where they say the old couple from Langkoa moved into 2 weeks ago." Min frowned. "You know about that?" "It's been abandoned for decades," Vika said. "But I saw lights there last night. And I heard chanting." Without another word, the trio packed essentials: salt, blessed rice, iron nails, a worn prayer bell, and a simple silver blade. They set off at noon, but the sky refused to clear. The closer they got, the heavier the fog became. Trees stood like skeletal guards. Birds did not sing here. The manor appeared suddenly through the mist-dark wood, cracked tiles, windows veiled with old newspapers and red talismans. A fetid stench seeped from under the door, like spoiled meat mixed with incense. "Stay close," Min said. They pushed the door open. It creaked like an animal in pain. Inside was worse than expected. The living room was filled with strange artifacts: jars of preserved organs, feathers, dolls bound in red thread, and in the center, a portrait of a woman. Youthful, radiant. But the eyes were painted entirely black. "That's her," Vika whispered. "That's the woman by the bridge." Koa knelt before a small altar. "Look at this," he said. A stone bowl, still wet with dark red liquid. Beside it, strips of skinned human folded like fabric. Men turned pale. "This isn't a ritual in progress," she muttered. "It's a workshop. They've done this more than once." Suddenly, a sound. From the floor above, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. They froze. Vika signaled. Men nodded and drew the silver blade. They climbed the stairs, every step groaning beneath them. At the top, a hallway stretched like a tunnel into shadow. At the far end, a door opened on its own. Inside, a figure sat with its back to them. Long black hair, smooth skin. She turned around. It was her. The beautiful woman. But up close, her beauty cracked like old paint. The eyes were too wide. The skin, too taut. And when she smiled, it was as if someone else was using her face. "You're not supposed to be here," she said. Her voice, two voices layered, one young, one ancient. Koa stepped forward. "You stole this body. Who were you before?" The woman tilted her head. "I was no one. I was forgotten. Left to rot in a bed. No husband, no children. Just wrinkles and pain. But now, I dance in the mirror. I feel the sun. Would you take that from me?" Men raised the blade. "If it costs someone their life, yes." The woman stood slowly. "Then take it. But remember this, youth is a currency. And you've already spent your innocence coming here." The lights burst. The walls shook. A gust of wind knocked them all backward. When they rose again, the woman was gone. Only a faint trail of blood led out the window. "She's running," men said. "No," Koa corrected. "She's hunting." The trail of blood led into the forest. Not just any part of the woods, it was the old section villagers called Rungkam, the Forbidden Grove. No one went there. Even the birds avoided flying overhead. Some said it was haunted. Others said it was cursed. Vika, Min, and Koa followed the trail silently. Every step deeper into the forest made the world behind them feel more distant, like they were crossing into a place that did not obey the same rules. "I've seen this before," Koa whispered. "In an old temple in Cao land. Blood trails that didn't lead away from danger, but toward it. As if something wanted to be followed." Min's hand never left the hilt of her silver dagger. "Then let's follow it. We'll give it what it wants." The trail ended at a collapsed stone well, hidden beneath roots and vines. All around it were bones, small and large, scattered like discarded toys. Human bones. Dozens. "Oh God," men muttered, kneeling to inspect them. Some of these are recent. And then they saw her. Just beyond the clearing, under a twisted banyan tree, stood a girl. At least, she looked like a girl barefoot, skin pale as candle wax, hair clumped with mud. But her eyes, they were completely white. Empty. Her body was covered in faint, spiraling runes carved into her skin. And where her face should have been soft and youthful, it was sunken and tight, like a mask pulled too tight over a skull. Vika stepped forward. "Are you the girl they took?" The girl didn't answer. But her mouth moved. No sound. Then, all at once, the air grew cold, and a wind whispered through the trees, not with rustling leaves, but with words. She was me. And I was her. Now we are none. The voice came from everywhere. It echoed through Vika's bones. Men dropped to one knee, clutching her ears. Even Koa stumbled. "Speak your name," Koa shouted. The girl blinked. A single tear, thick and red, slid down her cheek. "Nu," she whispered. My name was Nu. And suddenly, memories hit her. Fragmented images, a cold room, rope binding her hands, a chanting voice, the sting of a blade, her skin peeled slowly, pain beyond pain, and darkness. Endless darkness. "They took me," Nu said, her voice hollow. "To make her young. They promised me money. A future. A new job." She looked down at her hands, which trembled violently. "I didn't know. I was being sold." Men reached out slowly. "Nu. We can help you. Let us help you pass on." But Nu recoiled. "No. Not yet. Not until she's stopped. Not until the one who bought my death pays." Koa lowered his head. "There is more than one guilty soul, isn't there?" Nu nodded. And then she pointed at a figure approaching from the trees. A man. Well dressed. Mid-50s. His face calm, almost bored. But his eyes. Dead. "You," Vika said, rage rising. "You're from Langkoat. I saw you at the market." The man smiled faintly. "And I saw you, too. Always following, always meddling. Children should know their place." Men drew her blade. "Who are you?" The man bowed slightly. "I am Master John. Sorcerer. Restorer of beauty. And collector of souls." Koa stood between him and the children. "This is the end of your path, John." But John only laughed. You think I've come unprepared? My dear old fool. I am the ritual. I wear it like a second skin. At his words, the runes on Nu's arms flared with light. She screamed not in pain, but in fury. Her body lifted from the ground as if pulled by unseen strings. She's bound to him, Koa realized. She's still trapped. Vika turned to Nu. You said you wanted justice. We can help. But not like this. Nu's eyes flickered. She hovered in the air, torn between vengeance and freedom. Zhang raised his hand and chanted in a language older than any tongue spoken in the villages. The trees twisted. The ground cracked. The bones around the well began to rattle. Men threw a handful of blessed salt at Zhang. It struck his face, sizzling. He screamed and stumbled back. That was the opening Nu needed. She descended like lightning, her form glowing. She dove into Zhang, literally passing through him. He staggered, shrieked, and his body began to shift. Koa pulled Vika and Min back. She's trying to take back what's hers. Zhang's form twisted and bent unnaturally. His voice became garbled, overlapping with Nu's. His skin blistered, split, and then a flash. And silence. When it cleared, the clearing was empty. No Zhang. No Nu. Only the well. Still. Quiet. Men approached the edge and looked in. At the bottom, cradled in moonlight and moss, was a single white flower blooming from the cracked stones. Next to it was a strip of red cloth. The same cloth from Kwang's shirt. She ended it, Vika said quietly. She stopped him. Koa shook his head. No. She became him, long enough to destroy him from within. But that kind of rage, it doesn't just vanish. Men picked up the red cloth. Then we must find a way to truly lay her soul to rest. Or she'll become the next curse this village fears. And as the three turned to leave, none of them noticed the shadows at the edge of the forest, watching. Waiting. Something else had awakened. And it was still hungry. It started with the dogs. By the second morning after Zhang's disappearance, villagers awoke to a strange silence. The dogs, normally a noisy, quarrelsome bunch, were gone. Not one bark echoed through the valley. Then came the dreams. People began waking up screaming, covered in sweat, babbling nonsense. Some claimed to see a woman made of bone standing at the foot of their beds. Others described hearing whispers from inside their walls. Children wet their beds. Old men trembled without knowing why. Vika couldn't sleep either. She lay on the floor of Koa's hut, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. Her dreams were full of shadows crawling through cracks in the earth, shadows with no faces. The same word repeated over and over, wrong. Empty. That morning, Min returned from an overnight scout of the manor ruins. "It's worse than we thought," she said, slamming a bag on the table. "There are more ritual sites. At least 4 across the outskirts. And all of them are marked with the sigil of the Hollow." Koa's expression darkened. "The Vio dying. The Hollow ones," Min confirmed. Vika frowned. "What are they?" Koa explained slowly, carefully, before even the most ancient Vietnamese dynasties, before folklore and spirits had names, there were the Vio dying souls who refused death, who tore away their faces to escape judgment. They feed on identity, on memory. They cannot die, only be forgotten. They use rituals like Hon's Act to keep themselves tethered to the living world," Min added. "They hide behind the guise of sorcerers, but in truth, the sorcerers are hosts' temporary carriers." "You mean John wasn't the real evil?" Vika asked. "He was a doorway," Koa said grimly. "And it may still be open." As if summoned by those very words, a scream echoed from the village square. The trio rushed out to find chaos. An elderly woman Ba Nam was tearing at her own face in the middle of the market. Blood streamed down her chin as she howled, "It's not me. It's not me." Several villagers tried to hold her down, but she fought with unnatural strength. Her eyes were glazed white. Her voice distorted. "She's been hollowed," Koa whispered. They managed to sedate her with a powder from Min's satchel, but not before she whispered one last word. "John." That night, the village held a secret gathering. Inside the old communal house, Vika stood before dozens of scared faces, elders, youths, farmers, mothers. Everyone had heard the rumors. Everyone had felt the chill. Koa addressed them. "The darkness has not passed," he said. "John was merely a key. Something old or something faceless is now among us. Then what do we do?" A man shouted. "Burn it. Call the police." Koa shook his head. "You cannot fight shadows with fire or bullets. You must close the gate. Erase its memory. Reclaim the name that was stolen." Men stepped forward. "We have a plan. But we need help. We need witnesses. Survivors. Anyone who saw the original vessel knew." A timid hand rose at the back of the hall. It was a boy. 10 years old. His name was Teo. "I saw her," he said, voice shaking. "The day before she disappeared. She gave me candy. And told me to run home. Said bad things were coming. Men crouched beside him. What else? She had a scarf with flowers. And she cried when no one was looking. Vika's heart clenched. She knew she was going to die. Koa nodded. And that means we can call her. One last time. They prepared the ritual that same night. Not in the grove. Not in the forest. But right in the middle of the village on sacred ground. A circle of salt. Candles of buffalo tallow. Names etched into rice paper. And at the center, the scarf Teo had retrieved from his mother's sewing box, new scarf. When midnight struck, the air turned cold. Koa began chanting. The flame on the central candle flared, then vanished. Then came the whisper. I remember. A cold breeze swept across the circle, extinguishing every light except the one in Vika's hand. The air shimmered. And she was there. New. No longer hollow. No longer angry. Just tired. Thank you, she whispered. But before she could speak further, the ground trembled. A black mist rose from beneath the village. A shape began to form. Not John. Not new. Something bigger. Something ancient. The villagers screamed. Koa turned to Min. It's trying to stop the closing. Vika ran to the edge of the circle, gripping Nu's scarf tightly. Tell us his name. The one who did this to you. Nu's eyes locked with hers. He has no name anymore. He took mine. Koa's eyes widened. Then we must give it back. He turned to the villagers. Say her name. Say it loud. Say it together. One by one, voices rose. New. 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 The wind screamed. The mist writhed. And then silence. The mist collapsed inward, vanishing like breath on glass. The air warmed. And Nu smiled. I'm free. She vanished in a blink. The candles relit. The ground settled. The gate had been closed. But something remained, a blackened symbol burned into the earth. The mark of the hollow ones. Men stared at it for a long time. They'll try again, she said. Vika nodded. Let them. For a while, there was peace. The village of Thatch Sun began to breathe again. The dogs returned. The dreams faded. People went back to harvesting rice, patching roofs, and laughing without looking over their shoulders. But Vika knew better. Peace was a lie thin, fragile and already cracking. It began with the letter. One morning, men received a torn envelope delivered by a boy from Lang Xam, a neighboring village 2 hills away. The envelope was marked with a symbol burnt into the paper, not drawn. A spiraling eye with no pupil. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside were photographs. Grainy. Dark. Taken in secret. A man dressed in ceremonial black robes. A woman tied to a post. A circle of fire. The ritual of Honzak, happening again. Not just happening, thriving. Koa called it what it was. A network. A ring of necromancers using rural villages to harvest life for the elite. Those who want to live forever. Those who will pay any price. How many? Vika asked. Men's face was pale. At least 7 villages. All near old spiritual sites. And they're connected by something worse than magic. What? Vika asked. Blood. She laid out the map. Each village marked with a red dot. Each dot surrounded by dense forests, bamboo groves, or forbidden shrines. Each dot shaped into a sigil, together forming a rune of summoning. A mega ritual, Koa said, aghast. This isn't just soul theft. This is an invocation. To summon what? Vika asked. No one answered. That night, they visited the nearest village, Lang Xam. What they found chilled them. The village was abandoned. Houses sat empty. Food rotted in bowls. Chickens ran free. No signs of struggle, just silence. But at the center, in the communal hall, was a message scorched into the wooden floor. We offered them. Below it, a pile of bones. Too small to be adult. Too many to count. Vika couldn't breathe. Men dropped to her knees. These villages, they're not victims. They're participants. Koa nodded grimly. Some were convinced. Others were coerced. And some were simply paid. That night, while they camped near the edge of the ghost village, Vika had another dream. She stood inside a temple made of mirrors. Her reflection stared back, except it wasn't her. It was new. Only, different. Older. Wiser. Angry. You freed me, the vision said. But you have not closed the gate. You've opened it wider. Vika stepped forward. Tell me how to shut it. The mirror cracked. Find the heart. Destroy the root. Where? Before Nu could answer, black vines burst from the mirror and pulled Vika inward. She woke with a scream, heart pounding. Koa examined her carefully. This wasn't a dream. It was contact. Contact from beyond. He nodded. Nu's spirit remains. She's trying to guide you. You've been marked by the veil. Min added, then she's part of you now. The next morning, they set off toward Lang Bak, another village marked on the map. But this time, they weren't alone. A man awaited them at the river crossing. He wore all white. Eyes covered in ceremonial ash. Hands wrapped in prayer beads. I know who you are, he said. And who are you? Koa asked, stepping protectively in front of Vika. I am Thalak, the man replied. Former disciple of the 12 Circle sect. I defected when I saw what they were doing. You know about the network? Min asked. I helped build it, he admitted. Until I realized it wasn't about prolonging life, it was about replacing death. Replacing? Vika echoed. Thalak nodded. They don't just steal youth. They erase death itself. The rituals are no longer one-to-one. They're building a host. A shared body to house many souls. A living God made from stolen essence. Koa gasped. A chimera soul. They call it the Rootless King, Lak whispered. And its vessel is almost ready. Vika stepped forward. How do we stop it? You must go to the origin, he said. Where the first skin was shed. Where the first life was bought. And where is that? Thalak looked eastward, toward the mountains. The Black Hollow Shrine. Koa paled. That place was sealed 300 years ago. Until someone broke the seal, Lak said. Min gritted her teeth. John. Lak shook his head. No. Someone far worse. He handed them a small wooden token, a carved face with no mouth. Take this. Show it to the shrine guardian. They'll know you come with purpose. Vika looked up at the mountains, their peaks veiled in cloud and shadow. So that's where it ends, she said. Lak replied, no. That's where it begins. It took them 2 days to reach the foot of the mountain. The air grew colder with every step. The trail twisted through ghost forests, trees with black bark and no leaves. Even the birds refused to sing here. Every branch seemed to watch them. Every gust of wind whispered names they didn't want to remember. Vika led the group, clutching the faceless token given by Thalak. Men walked beside her, blade hidden beneath her tunic, eyes scanning constantly. Koa, older now than ever before, leaned on his staff. Each step was harder than the last. The shrine appeared near sundown. A jagged outcrop of black stone, built into the mountain like a parasite. Time had not touched it, no cracks, no moss. Only the silence of something that had never lived. As they approached the gate, a figure emerged from the shadows. She wore white robes. Her face was veiled. And when she spoke, her voice was neither old nor young. "I am the guardian." Vika held up the token. "We come with purpose," she said. The woman nodded and gestured. "Then enter. But know this, once inside, the shrine will not show you what is. It will show you what you fear. Only truth can guide you through." They stepped inside. The door shut behind them. Darkness swallowed everything. Suddenly, they were no longer together. Vika stood alone in a narrow corridor, walls pulsing like flesh. From the far end came a sound, a squelching, wet and raw. She moved forward. The walls bled. Every few steps, a face appeared on the surface, crying, laughing, screaming. One of them was new. Another looked like her own. Then she heard her father's voice. "Vika, come home. It's dinner time." She froze. Her father had died 5 years ago. The voice repeated, "Closer now." She turned and saw a man with no face holding a pot of rice, beckoning her. She ran. As she rounded a corner, the corridor opened into a chamber. In the center was a mirror. But it showed no reflection. Only a void. As she stared, words began to carve themselves across the glass. "You are what you kill." Min's trial was different. She found herself in a room full of mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of herself, young, old, cruel, broken, bleeding, powerful. In one mirror, she was wearing the robes of the 12 Circle sect. In another, she was smiling with blood on her hands. "Which one is real?" a voice whispered. She clenched her fists. "None of you." The mirrors shattered. She screamed as shards flew toward her, but they passed through her body like smoke. Then a door appeared. She stepped through. Koa stood in the temple courtyard, facing a line of people. They were people he had failed, a girl who drowned, a man possessed by spirits, a child who never woke up. They stared at him. "You were supposed to protect us," they said in unison. "I was only a man," Koa whispered. "I never claimed to be more." They pointed behind him. Koa turned and saw a version of himself. Younger. Dressed in black. Eyes hollow. "You could have become one of them," the figure said. "And maybe saved more lives." Or destroyed more, Koa replied. Power without compassion is rot. The figure crumbled to ash. The path opened. The three reunited in a vast central chamber. At its center stood a black altar. Floating above it, a sphere of skin, pulsating with veins. Inside it, something moved. A heartbeat. But not human. Men stepped forward. The Chimera's soul. The rootless king. It's still growing, Koa said. Still incomplete. Vika felt her chest tighten. We can stop it? Here. Now. But before they could move, the shadows shifted. A form emerged from behind the altar. They lack. Or what had once been him. His face had melted. His hands were covered in runes. And when he spoke, it was not his voice. You came too late. Koa stepped back. You lied to us. I led you here, the thing said. So you could witness rebirth. The sphere above the altar pulsed faster. Cracks began to spread across its surface. I am the host, the thing in lax skin said. And you are the sacrifice. The walls of the shrine began to close in. Men leapt at the creature, blade flashing. It screamed 1,000 voices in one as her blade carved into its chest. Koa threw salt and prayer beads, chanting until blood ran from his eyes. Vika did the only thing she could. She stepped onto the altar and placed both hands on the sphere. Vision struck her like lightning. Villagers being offered one by one. New screaming as her soul was torn away. Zhang kneeling before a black flame. The rootless king faceless, endless devouring the world. Vika screamed. But then she remembered Nu's words, find the heart. Destroy the root. The heart was here. And she still had Nu's scarf in her pocket. She wrapped it around her hand. And punched into the sphere. It shattered. The light exploded. The chamber cracked. The scream of the rootless king shook the shrine to its foundation. Then, silence. When she awoke, Vika lay on the grass. It was morning. Min was beside her, arm in a sling. Koa sat nearby, meditating. The shrine was gone. Nothing remained but a crater. Did we win? She asked. Koa looked at the sky. No. We survived. Men stood and smiled faintly. But we ended something that should have never begun. And from the trees, a soft breeze whispered. Not a curse, but a name. New. The crater where the black hollow shrine had stood was silent. No light. No movement. Only the cold wind carried faint whispers, voices lost between worlds. Days passed. Thatch sun seemed to heal. People smiled again. Dogs barked at dusk. The children played in fields without fear. But Vika did not rest. Her nights were haunted by visions, flickers of new pale eyes, a dark figure watching from the shadows, and a voice inside her head whispering secrets she dared not speak aloud. You carry what they left behind, Min said one morning, finding Vika staring blankly at a withered tree. What do you mean? Vika asked, her voice distant. Min hesitated. When you touched the rootless king's core, part of its darkness entered you. Vika's breath caught. It's a shadow, Koa added, arriving with a bundle of herbs. A parasite of the soul. It feeds on fear and doubt. Vika clenched her fists. How do I get rid of it? You don't, Min said firmly. You learn to control it. Suddenly, screams shattered the morning calm. They rushed to the village square. There, a man was thrashing violently, eyes rolled back, body contorted unnaturally. Not again, Koa muttered. The man collapsed, a black tattoo glowing on his chest. Vika examined it. The mark was the same as the one from the ritual sites. He's been touched by the network, Min said. And it's spreading. The villagers whispered of curses and possession. Vika knew this was only the beginning. That night, alone under the moon, Vika heard the voice again. Find me, it breathed. Or become me. Shadows coiled around her heart, cold and heavy. In the days that followed, Vika began to change. She felt strength unnatural, dark. She could hear whispers from the forest, commands from an unseen force. Yet, a part of her resisted. One evening, Min found her chanting words no one had taught her, summoning visions of ancient battles and lost souls. Vika, Min said, you're losing yourself. I'm fighting, Vika whispered, tears streaming. But it's inside me now. Koa nodded gravely. There's a ritual, he said, a rite of binding. To seal the shadow, you must face your own darkness. Alone. Vika prepared. She journeyed to the heart of the bamboo grove, the place where it all began. Underneath the twisted stalks, she lit candles and drew protective circles. The voice came again. Stronger. Clearer. You are mine. But Vika stood firm. She spoke the ancient words Koa had taught her, calling on the spirits of the village and the memory of new. Light and shadow clashed. Her mind tore between two worlds. Pain screamed through her veins. And then, a figure appeared. Not new. Not the rootless king. But a reflection. Vika's own face. Twisted. Dark. Who are you? She cried. I am what you feared, the shadow replied. Your past, your pain, your doubt. You won't control me, Vika said, raising her hand. The shadow smiled. Try. Their battle began. Mind against mind. Light against dark. For hours, the grove shook with their struggle. At dawn, Vika collapsed, breathless but victorious. The shadow was contained for now. She rose, stronger, but changed. She had touched the edge of darkness and survived. But the village was not safe. The network was still out there, waiting. The night sky over thatched sun was heavy, stars swallowed by thick clouds. Inside a small hut near the edge of the village, Vika sat alone, her hands trembling as she held an old locket. It was the only thing left from her mother, a woman who had disappeared when Vika was just a child. Her fingers traced the cold metal. A memory flickered, a soft lullaby, a warm embrace, a whispered warning. They are coming for you, Vika. Remember who you are. She swallowed hard. Why had her mother vanished? What had she meant by they? These questions had haunted Vika her entire life, but never more than now, as the shadows inside her stirred. Suddenly, a knock at the door broke the silence. Men stepped inside, eyes scanning the room. Koa wants to see you, she said quietly. Vika nodded, standing. The old man waited by the fire, holding a bundle of ancient scrolls. We need to talk, Koa said. He unrolled a map, ancient and brittle, dotted with symbols matching those on Vika's skin. These markings, Koa explained, are not random. They are part of a lineage. You carry the blood of the original vessel, the first to undergo the Honzak ritual. Vika's breath hitched. You mean? I'm connected to Nu. More than connected, Koa replied. You are her descendant. Her soul and yours are entwined. But how? Vika asked. My family never spoke of this. Because it was a secret to protect you. The ritual requires a bloodline to maintain balance, to keep the darkness at bay. Min handed Vika a small mirror, ornate and cracked. Look, she said. Vika peered into the glass. Her reflection shifted. She saw a girl covered in scars, skin peeling like bark. A woman chained to a tree. A child running through fire. And finally, herself, older, stronger, and glowing with an eerie light. The curse is inside you, Min said softly. And so is the key. Vika's mind reeled. Then came a sudden noise, a soft growl from outside. The trio rushed out. At the edge of the village, twisted shadows moved among the trees. Figures with hollow eyes, mouths sewn shut. The hollow ones had returned. Vika's heart pounded. She raised her hand. Darkness surged inside her. But this time, she controlled it. She whispered an ancient incantation, learned from Koa's scrolls. Light exploded from her fingertips. The hollow ones recoiled, shrieking. The villagers watched in awe as Vika stood amidst the fading shadows, a beacon of hope and terror intertwined. But their victory was short-lived. A cold wind swept the village, and a voice echoed from the mountain. You cannot run from blood. The air was thick with tension as Vika stood at the edge of the mountain path leading up to the Black Hollow Shrine's ruins. The village behind her seemed miles away, swallowed by creeping mist and silence. Beside her, Min and Koa prepared the ritual tools: salt, iron nails, and the ancient scrolls that held forgotten incantations. Vika's fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what was to come. The bloodline she carried was more than heritage, it was a curse, a responsibility that had haunted generations. Her mind flashed back. Years ago, a younger woman, her mother, stood in a candlelit room, chanting softly. She wore a necklace identical to Vika's locket. Suddenly, a shadow appeared behind her, a figure with eyes like voids. Her mother turned, fear and resolve fighting in her eyes. You must protect her, the woman whispered, holding out the necklace. The ritual will come for her. You are the last guardian. Back to the present, Vika took a deep breath. We finish this tonight. They ascended the mountain slowly. The path grew steeper, the wind colder. Strange symbols etched into stones glowed faintly under their feet. At the summit lay the shattered remains of the shrine. But they were not alone. Figures emerged from the mist, cloaked in black, faces hidden, chanting in tongues that twisted the air. The cult of the rootless king. The final guardians of the ritual. Koa stepped forward, voice steady, this ends here. The cultists raised their hands, summoning dark energy that swirled like a storm. Vika felt the shadow within her stir, fighting to break free. Men ignited a line of salt around them, chanting prayers. The ground trembled as the battle began. Vika faced the leader, a tall figure with a mask carved like a hollow skull. You carry the seed, he hissed. Give it to me. I will never, Vika shouted, raising her hands. Light burst forth. The shadow inside her roared, trying to consume her. But Vika called on her ancestors, on Nu's memory. Her voice echoed, growing stronger. One by one, the cultists fell. The leader screamed, unmasked to reveal a face twisted by years of dark magic. With the final surge, Vika released a blast of pure light. The cult collapsed, their power broken. Exhausted, Vika collapsed to her knees. Koa helped her up. "The curse is lifted," he said softly. "But the bloodline lives," Vika replied. "And so must the guardians." As dawn broke, the village stirred. A new day. But the shadows would always linger. The village of Thatch Sun was waking up under a sky smeared with crimson streaks, the aftermath of the battle still lingering in the air. Vika sat beside the fire in Koa's hut, staring at the old locket. Suddenly, men entered, holding a bundle of faded letters tied with a ribbon. "These were found hidden in your mother's things," she said softly. Vika untied the ribbon, unfolding the fragile papers. The handwriting was hurried, anxious. One letter caught her eye. "If you are reading this, it means the curse has reached us. You must know the truth. Our family's bloodline is tied to the first vessel, but also to the sorcerers who built the ritual. We are both the key and the lock." Her hands trembled. Men looked over her shoulder. "It gets worse." The letters spoke of a pact, a bargain made centuries ago between Vika's ancestors and dark forces to protect the village in exchange for sacrifice. Her mother had tried to break it but was silenced. Suddenly, a knock came from the door. Koa opened it cautiously. A stranger stood there, a woman with sharp eyes and a scar running down her cheek. "I'm Lynn," she said. "I knew your mother. I have something you need to see." Inside, Lynn revealed a hidden room beneath her house. Walls covered with ancient texts, jars of herbs, and relics glowing faintly. In the center, a mirror, dark and swirling. Lynn explained. "This mirror shows the true nature of the ritual. The vessel is not just a sacrifice but a prison. And you, Vika, are the last hope to close it forever." Vika's reflection twisted and shifted, showing visions of futures, some bright, some consumed by darkness. The mirror whispered secrets, names of sorcerers still alive, cults expanding beyond the mountains. As the night deepened, Vika realized her fight was far from over. The bloodline she carried was both a blessing and a curse. And the shadows that hunted her were growing stronger. The dawn was pale, hesitant, as if the sun itself feared what the day would bring. Vika stood at the edge of the ancient burial ground, the final battleground. Beside her were Min, Koa, and Lin. The air was thick with tension and an unspoken understanding. This would be the last fight. Lin raised her hand, revealing an amulet, the heart of the vessel, said to be the key to sealing the curse. "The ritual must be completed," she said solemnly. "But only a willing sacrifice can close the veil." Vika looked at them, her heart heavy. "You want me to do it?" she whispered. Koa nodded. "You carry the bloodline, the curse and the cure." Men took Vika's hand. "You won't be alone." As night fell, they began the rite. Candles flickered around the circle. The earth trembled. Shadows danced like living things. Vika stepped into the center, holding the amulet. She closed her eyes, feeling the darkness surge within her, the shadow she had fought, the pain of Nu's sacrifice, the weight of generations. Voices rose, chanting, crying, begging. Vika spoke the ancient words, her voice steady. A radiant light erupted from the amulet, enveloping the circle. The shadows screamed, twisting, unraveling. But the curse fought back. The ground cracked, and from the fissures emerged the true form of the rootless king, a massive, faceless monstrosity, born from centuries of stolen souls. Vika's light clashed with its darkness. A battle beyond flesh and bone. Time slowed. The village held its breath. In a final act of will, Vika plunged the amulet into the heart of the beast. A blinding explosion. When the light faded, only silence remained. The curse was broken. The souls trapped within were freed, including Nu's. Vika collapsed, her body growing cold. But then, a warmth hand grasped hers. Men smiled through tears. "You did it." The villagers emerged, eyes wide with hope. Koa spoke softly, "Balance has been restored. But remember, every light casts a shadow." As the sun rose, Vika looked to the horizon. The past was heavy, but the future, though uncertain, held promise. And somewhere, in the quiet, a gentle breeze carried a whisper. "Thank you." Title: The Skinless Curse, Shadows of the Bamboo Grove. Description: In the remote village of Thatch Sun, a chilling mystery unfolds when the corpse of a skinless girl is found in the bamboo grove. Young and fearless Vika, carrying a hidden bloodline linked to ancient dark rituals, must confront a growing network of necromancers who steal youth and souls through forbidden ceremonies. As the shadows of the past awaken and the curse threatens to consume her and her village, Vika faces harrowing battles against faceless horrors, ancient spirits, and her own inner darkness. This gripping horror tale blends folklore, sacrifice, and redemption in a haunting journey to break a centuries-old curse before it consumes everything she loves.